Let's go to the Visual Studio Code now, and over here in the customer dialog box component.html file, we'll need to add a new function that is triggered when we click on the add button. Similar to the one that we had done in inventory component, on this form I'm going to mention ng submit and call a function on submit. For this function we'll be writing the code for. But before we proceed to write the functionality of this function, what we want to make sure is that all the form controls that we have on this page, they are matching with the ones that are required to be sent to the web API. So over here we'll come and click on add a new customer. So you see that we have first name, last name, phone number, registration date, and email, but we don't have customer ID over here. So I'll add a new text box for customer ID. And one more thing we are going to do, we're going to make the changes so that the date is entered through a date picker and not in a text box. So let's make the changes for that. Over here I'll just add a new column. So I'm adding it next to the email for now, and this is going to be customer ID. Or let's do one thing. What we can do is just change this particular form control to phone number. Over here the name should be same, as this is email, it would be email only. And what I want is that the customer ID should come over here. So I'll take this, I'll be taking this and add it over here, and this should be customer ID. The same name is given in the label. Then this is first name, last name, phone number, and email. So this is all fine. Now we need to change the registration date, right? So what we'll do is we'll give the type for this particular control, that is registration date, as date, and the class would be form control only. So I think this is fine. I'll just save it. Okay, it says on submit is not there. So for now, I'll just remove this and we'll add it again once we are writing the functionality. Okay, we'll go to the browser. And over here you see that we have a new form now. We have customer ID added because we need to send it to the database for the row to be added for a particular customer. Then this particular registration date, we had a text box in place of the date picker. Now we have a date picker, and through the calendar we can just enter the date over here. Then we have first name, last name, phone number, and email. So this looks perfectly fine. Now we'll be working on the functionality for this add button. So let's go to the Visual Studio Code again, and over here I'll just save this and add a new function also over here so that the error is removed on submit. I'll save it. So you see the error is gone now. So now we'll just start working on the on submit functionality. We'll have a API URL that we'll need to give, and I'll just mention it over here. Before that, we have to write the HTTP options. This is similar to the process that we followed for inventory details. HTTP headers. Then over here we'll find the properties for it. Authorization. In case you have a token that could be passed through this. And then we have content type. That should be application slash JSON. So headers are defined, and after this what we want to do is we want to call the post method of customer API. So I'll just take the URL from here itself, because I know that I only need to change the controller name. The rest of the API URL would remain the same. So over here in the API URL, I only have to change the controller name, that is customer. Now for calling the post method, what we need to do is have HTTP client defined over here. We are going to inject the HTTP client, and for this particular error we'll need to do an import of Angular core. After this, what I want is I need to call the HTTP client and we need to post. So we are trying to call the post method, that is all good, but we still haven't defined what we need to send to the backend API to be saved into the database. For that, we'll need to define an object over here that would be mapped to our HTML page and would take the data from the form to the backend API. So let me just define customer details over here, and we have several properties that we need to send. First is customer ID, then we have first name, last name, registration date, phone, and email. Okay, so this is all of the information that we would be sending. But how do we bind the data from the HTML to this particular TS file? For that, I'll just save this once and we'll just take the name of this object. Over here, we'll come to the customer dialog box component.html file. Here we need to bind it. So this is going to be through ng model, and the value would be customer details customer ID, and then we have name property that would be same as the one that we have in the object. So similarly, we'll be giving the ng model for all of the controls. This is for customer ID, then we have registration date. Let me give the correct name over here, and then we'll give the ng model binding for registration date. So this needs to be changed, and the name would be same over here. So let's do it for all of the controls. First name, then similarly it would be for first name, This is phone number, and these are the two. I've given the property as phone, so that is what we are keeping over here. Let me just reconfirm it once on the TS file. Phone, right? Correct over here. I think we have done the bindings for all of the controls. I'll just save it once. Okay, so you see that as soon as I saved it, some errors have come. We have done the binding, but we need to import over here forms module and common module. I think this should fix the error. Yes. Okay, now we'll be working on the post functionality. We want to send this data to our backend API. This dot customer details. Then we need to pass the HTTP options, and we are going to subscribe to this HTTP post method. Just doing a console log over here. For error, we again want to do a console log. But once this is complete, what we want to do is we want to write the functionality. For completion of this post method, we are going to give an alert box that gives the message customer details saved successfully. And which details are saved, that we can show through json.stringify by passing the customer details over here. So the functionality is all good. We'll just save it once. After this, we will go to the browser, try to enter new customer information, give some random values. Let me just give some random values over here. And a date. So I'll click on add, and it says customer details successfully saved. Saved successfully, that is the message that we had given. And over here you see this is the object that we are passing to the backend API. And now generally when we are developing an application for the end user, we don't show what particular data they have sent to the backend, right? Because they don't want to see a JSON being shown to them in the message box. This is for our convenience, that we are able to see what all data has been sent, and this is just for development purposes. So I'll click on OK, but we need to confirm that all of the data that we were trying to send has been already saved in the database once we have got the alert box. So for that, we'll just go over here and I'll click on execute. So you see, whatever data we send, this was all random data. We've just sent some random values from the front end, and those are all saved successfully into the database. So the save functionality is working perfectly for the new component that we have created, that is customer.